Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. Are you a goofball that loves Giants football? If so, sit back and relax. Except you, that person driving. Sit up and keep your eyes on the road. Your ears, though, can still listen as we talk about the team that both excites and frustrates us so much. And now, here are your goofball hosts, Drew and Rob.
Welcome, fellow goofballs, to Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. I am Drew, joined as always by...
I'm Rob. Let's get this show on the road.
Oh, yes. And, of course, it's time to give you guys an update on what's going on in training camp. We're talking about practice here. Practice. So... It's been an interesting time in training camp. You know, we didn't really know what to expect at all last year. Brand new coaching staff, ton of new players, and now this year, same coaching staff, but there's still a ton of new players. The roster overhaul has just been going on and on all season here,
and a ton of the same players that have not been able to see the field from last year.
Yeah, we are known for championships and injuries here at the Giants.
Yeah.
So let's go over some
all that injuries.
Let's go over some of these injuries here. We got some injury updates, some good, some bad. But first off, Sterling Shepard, Jamison Crowder, back and ready for action here. And I cannot stress enough how important. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to take away from Jamison Crowder. I don't want to take away from that. The guy's been a legit NFL player for many years now. But I cannot stress how big it is to have Sterling Shepard back on the field practicing with the team. That guy is like part Giants player, part Giant coach, part Giant cheerleader. Like,
stop, say that. All the above.
Like when we say the whole once a Giant, always a Giant, that doesn't apply to every player. I know we say that as if it does, but it doesn't. Like once a Giant, always a Giant doesn't apply to Kadarius Toney, for example. You know, doesn't apply to Eli Apple, for example. It sure as hell applies to Sterling Shepard. That man will probably have a job within the Giants organization the day after he retires. That's how well respected he is in that building with the team. And again, to have a veteran like that back with a roster that's full of young receivers, it's a huge thing. Think about it. You got Wandale, even though he's not practicing yet, going to his second year. You got Hyatt in his first year. You got Paris Campbell's when he played, 3-4 years? I mean, you know, the guys that we have out there, even
I mean, you can say Campbell as much as you want. You can say Campbell all you want, but like he healthy, Campbell played, 2.5 years?
Yeah, he's not even.
Yeah.
The Giants
not to be a Debbie Downer.
The Giants should do like an infomercial. Are you an injured receiver? Do you have trouble seeing the field? Have we the team for you?
Do you need a spot? We got a home run for you.
You could be one of 15 receivers who never see the field. But yeah, like I said, it's nice to have the veteran leadership that he brings back out there on the field. And don't get me wrong, he's been there the whole time on the sideline. He was there on the sidelines last year when he was, injured as well. But to have him on the field battling with the guys is a huge thing. It's a huge win at that point for the team overall. And again, having Jamison Crowder back is a nice pickup as well. He's a veteran guy. So, like I said, don't want to, make it seem like he's just, Jamison's there. Like he's still a good player who's been in the league for years there. But just having Shepard back is a bigger move there. Let's see. We got a couple comments here. Dakota says, Jesus Christ, let's get on with it. What's up, Dakota? Our resident Eagles troll there at that point. Yeah, we got to give a chance to share it out to different groups and stuff like that, and different people, or else, don't get as many people to get a chance to see it. Had a commenter. She says, shut up, Dakota. Watch your mouth, Giants on top. Dakota says, is that troll on Drew's shelf just Robin 15 years?
Pretty much. Wait. I'm not taller than that shit. I'm not taller than him.
Let's see here. I'm not seeing the resemblance here. We got Scott Thaler as well. I can't put the comment up because he says go Rams, goofballs, but it's the rule. You say go any other team but the Giants. It does not end up on the screen. That's the rule. I don't make the rules. I just follow them. I'm kidding. I make them and follow them.
Let's say, what do you mean the
rules? I don't know who makes the rules around here. It's like whose line? The rules are made up and the points don't matter.
Might have been a gnome behind you.
Might have been him. We need a name for the gnome. I think the gnome needs a name. I want to call him David the Gnome just because of the TV show, but he needs a name. We'll figure that out. We'll figure it out. Put in the comment section, maybe.
Roberto.
You think the name of the troll should be? No, it can't be Roberto. You're already called Roberto. All right. So on to the bad news injury-wise, because it's not a Giants training camp update without some injury news here. So backup center J.C. Hassenhauer will have surgery for a triceps injury and is out long-term. There are some even reporting he could be out the entire season.
Let's be honest here.
Where's the honesty coming? I'm waiting. Don't keep me in suspense,
for everyone that's just listening to the podcast, I'm just giving Drew the look. Like, really? Do we really expect this guy to line up at center? Are we really expecting him to make a difference at center? Like, Bresson probably center before he does, if he was healthy.
I didn't expect him to start at center. I did expect him to potentially make the team just because he's the only other center we have that's a legit center. I played the position year in, year out besides JMS. So it's like, you want to count just a rookie to be your only true center?
Touche. Yeah. I mean, if you look before he even got hurt, like through this past week of training camp, they've been flocking guys in and out.
Oh, yeah.
Of that. Like, I'm not that worried.
Ben Bredesen, it looks like he's going to be the backup center the way things are going, basically. So, all right. So we got another injury update. That's not so good. Defensive tackle Vernon Butler. We talked about the fact that, he didn't show up for camp, was put on the PUP list at that point. Well, now he's been officially placed on the reserve injured list, which means he is done for the year. So, not that we expected big things out of Vernon Butler, but would have been nice to have the extra camp body to provide the best depth possible for the team overall for the season there. So, Vernon Butler, best luck getting healthy, and whatever comes your way in the future. Because I'd guess it's not with the Giants.
Probably not.
Probably not. All right. On to good news here. So, we talked about speed and the fact that we lacked some speed last year, which we definitely did. I mean, let's be honest. Slayton was the only one who was a speedy receiver we had on the entire roster base all last year.
We got Tom Cruise. The need for speed.
I feel the need.
The need for speed.
Now, just so you're aware, there are help groups that help people with speed addictions.
Don't tell Tom Cruise that.
Listen, he had other issues. I'm just saying. I live in Clearwater. I know all about his issues. But yeah, Jalen Hyatt was clocked during practice, unofficial clock time, obviously. It's a training camp, 24 miles per hour. The fastest recorded speed ever in NFL history was Tyreek Hill at 23.3 miles per hour in 2016. So he is quite possibly the new fastest receiver in the history of the NFL. Not just this season, not just of the Giants, ever. That don't get me wrong, that's not an automatic this guy's going to be good. I don't want people thinking of it as that, because John Ross, you guys remember him? We had him a couple of years ago, a wide receiver. What was he? The fastest receiver, in the NFL at that time, basically, besides Tyreek Hill. And he just retired, I think, the last week or something like that, too. He can't make a roster now. So,
something like that.
It takes more than speed to be a receiver, but it's nice to have a top shelf skill. I think that's safe to say. A top shelf skill is nice. So let's see here. We got Couple nice catches he's made as well, too. So I actually saw one he made today where he was kind of tiptoeing the sideline a la Chris Carter back in the day. Again, practice. I'm not saying he can do that in the regular NFL games.
Yeah.
But he's looked pretty good for a guy that says he can't run routes and is a total, project. I agreed that he's a project, and I still do. He's a project.
100%.
But just because you're a project doesn't mean you can't start off as a contributor that contributes more as they gain experience.
Yeah, I know he was a little bit frustrated the first couple of days of camp because I know he went down to the third.
Yeah,
I don't want to say third string, but the third camp body, if you will.
Third group.
Yeah, third group, and he was upset because it was probably the first time in his career with that speed and quote unquote his talent that he was the third group and not the number one group.
Like I said, he's going to be a project. There's no doubt on that. Anybody who thinks he's going to be, an all-pro, top flight receiver right off the bat is kidding themselves. He's going to need some time. And there's nothing wrong with that. He's a third-round pick.
Yep.
Third-round picks can take a year or two to develop.
Yeah, there's a reason. He was supposed to be number one, quote unquote. But there's a reason why he fell to the third round.
Yeah, there is. And it's the concerns we talked about, that he didn't run a full route tree in Tennessee. He didn't run an NFL offense in Tennessee. So now he's got to learn how to do that at the professional level when he didn't do that at the semi-professional level. I guess that's when you want to call college football. It's really amateur, but I mean, you could easily make the case that it's the only thing that's better than that besides the NFL would be like the XFL and USFL. Those guys probably still have more talent than your average college football team. All right.
Yeah.
On to the next guy, who I don't know if you guys have heard of this or not, but that Darren Waller guy looks pretty good.
Wait, what?
I know it's been kind of a well-kept secret within the Giants camp, but Darren Waller looks pretty good.
Really? I haven't heard that.
I know. For a guy that they've been pumping like crazy out of the hype train, like this is like the longest hype train I've ever seen in training camp ever. Like, it's insanity.
Because he's 6'6".
Art Stapleton even made their comparison of like this may be the best weapon the Giants have had on their roster receiving wise since OBJ.
Yeah,
that's kind of a big statement to make right there. And obviously Art was around during OBJ. Art been around for years in general. He was there for Plexico. He was there for
I was about to say that's the other name that was thrown around.
He's there for Knicks. He's been there for, Cruz. He's been there for all the big time receivers that we've had, in the last 20 years or so as a New York Giants. So he knows a little bit of what he's talking about. So I'm kind of shocked he made that big of a claim. But at the same point, he might be right.
That's what I said. I mean, we've also been talking about this since the acquisition happened. He's going to be our number one receiver. And I mean, he's saying OBJ, but I also heard Plexico.
Yeah.
The best weapon our quarterback has seen since Plexico Burress.
Yeah. I mean, and Plexico was a beast for those couple of years he was with us.
One is just a
beast.
Not OBJ.
All right, let's go over a couple of the comments here before we go into more stuff we got here. So Deb says, "Hi, Rob, before you disappear." See, Rob's still here. He's still here.
Hi.
There he is. He's still here.
Where'd I go? I'm right here.
Scott says, "Nom nuts?" Dakota says, his name should be, this is the gnome we're talking about behind here. He says, his name should be Dave Gettleman. Gnome is bigger than that GM success. Well, that's not saying much, but you know what? I have to stress the fact that Gettleman was a horrible GM. Let's just get that out there before somebody reads what I'm about to say wrong. Horrible GM. Let's look at the guys we re-signed this year. The big contracts.
The drafts.
Andrew Thomas, Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley. Who drafted those guys? Just saying. Dexter Lawrence. These are cornerstones of the Giants team, and they were drafted by Dave Gettleman. He did do that at least well. He wasn't a bad drafter. So, just we can hate the man all we want for things he did wrong. Nate Solder, Kenny Galladay, the some of the trades he's made as well, especially one with Cincinnati. Just saying, Billy Price, but he was a good drafter. Let's see. He was talking about Jalen Hyatt, called him a bust. Then he said, "Retired John Ross." Yeah, he retired. John Ross, a perfect example, not to draft from the P12, Pac-12 there. Jalen Rager, same thing. And an Eagle fan, you would know that. Said, think should have hung on to the tight end. I'm assuming you mean the Raiders should have hung on to him.
I guess.
He's gonna ball for Jack. Oh, he's talking about Evan Ingram. He's talking about Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram. Listen, Evan Ingram was damaged goods. He couldn't have stayed with New York. Just mentally, he couldn't be here anymore. I believe that thoroughly. Because what boiled down to it is Giant fans just hated him because of the drops he'd made, and it got to the point where the man's getting booed on the field. It's not a good space for him. He can go to Jacksonville, that, let's be frank, doesn't really care about the Jags, and just do his thing with no pressure whatsoever. And listen, there's something to be said for that. Sometimes you are a better fit for a small market than a large market. And I think Evan Ingram may fall into that category. And it's not a knock on him. Different people like different things. Same as like may have somebody who works in retail that wants to work at a slower store than a busier store. That's just life sometimes.
I mean, Ingram does seem like he progressed, but at the same time, that's hard to do in the New York market.
Yeah. It is very, very difficult. As Dakota also says, hire Joe Judge. Listen, Joe Judge came. I can't.
That's all I say.
I can't even say anything. Listen, he had a lot of us fooled in the beginning, so I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, let's get back to some of the notes here we got here. Let's talk about the corners here, because the big news obviously has been Deonte Banks, who I'll say this: whenever you see a video on Twitter or Facebook or any of the social media sites here, or I should say Twitter now, it's X, right? Is it X? We call it X, or we still call it Twitter? I don't even know yet. This whole X.
I guess you still call it Twitter. I mean, granted, now there's a giant X on my phone instead of big old bird.
Listen, whenever you have a video that pops up in Giants practice and X going to give it to you, it's if you look at who's catching the ball, that's what the Giants want you to look at. Oh, look, Darren Waller made this great catch. Oh, look, Paris Campbell made this great catch. Oh, look, Jalen Hyatt made this good catch. I challenge people to look at this. Don't just look at who caught the ball. Look at who let them catch the ball. And a lot of those videos, you'll see number 36, Deonte Banks, is the guy they're catching the ball on. Not all of them. I'm not trying to be that guy. But there's a decent amount you're seeing with him getting burnt pretty bad. And again, Rob and I weren't that high on him coming out of drafts, but I'm not sitting there and saying either at the same point that he's a bum and he's not going to make it. We've talked about this before. Corner is a very, very difficult position to transition out of college into the NFL and excel right away. And keep in mind, guy went to Maryland.
This is true. And also, super athlete. This is why he was drafted to the Giants, because we can mold him what we want him to be. And I brought this up a few weeks ago. Do you think they're throwing the kitchen sink at him, or do you think he's just not making plays?
I think he's just a trial by fire, and he's going from Maryland to the New York Giants. It's a big jump. That's a big jump. This is not Alabama or Georgia he went from. There's a reason people get drafted out of the SEC, because they play a better caliber of opponent. You have a better view of what they can do against better talent, because you got guys that are back in some of these SEC teams sometimes get drafted in the NFL. As J.C. Hassenauer we talked about earlier, he was a backup in college from Alabama. Got to didn't get drafted, and wasn't drafted, undrafted, but he still made it in the NFL for some time. That's just the conference that does that. So, but can't say the same for Maryland facing that kind of competition week in, week out. And, we definitely saw flaws when we looked at his tape. We were doing and this is before the Giants even drafted him. If you go back and look at when we did our analysis there on the corners, if I remember correctly, I think we gave him a second round grade. Did we give him?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't have him at a first round grade. We thought the hype train was just overblown with him. People fell in love with the athleticism and forgot the fact that the skill and the technique wasn't quite there. Now, again, second round grade. We're not saying he was a bum. We're saying he needed some time. He wasn't well polished. So if you throw a guy out there who's not well polished, what's going to happen when he faces somebody who is polished? It's not going to go well.
Not going to shine.
Yeah, not going to shine, no matter how much polish. So we'll have to see what happens overall. But I'll tell you who has been really impressing a lot of people is Trey Hawkins. Trey Hawkins the third, pinkies out, Esquire.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's
guy the third. Yeah.
I mean, he's even gotten some first team reps. That's how good he's been doing. Now, when he has gotten first team reps, he hasn't looked as good, but that's to be expected. Keep in mind, he went to a small school, Old Dominion. Before that, he went to a very, very small school. He only spent, I think, 2 years at Old Dominion, if I'm correct. I can check the notes there. But, Hawkins is exceeding expectations. Banks is kind of down where...
in that floor.
Yeah. And I mean, again, it's early, guys. Let's not overreact. We don't want to be that podcast. Oh, my God, the world's coming to an end. Deontay Banks got burnt in practice.
He's on fire.
This corner's on fire. I'm just saying. But yeah, I think that, like I said, I think that the big thing for me is that we have to give these guys time. We have to see what these players develop into. But I think the big thing is that Trey Hawkins may excel what people thought. We talked about this multiple times, not just this year, but last year, even when we first started the show. When Adoree gets hurt, who plays corner? Because you have to think that way, because Adoree does get hurt every single year. That's just what Adoree does. He's out for a couple of games every year. Maybe Trey Hawkins is that guy. Maybe that'd be kind of scary having two rookie corners out at the same time. It's like, ooh. Yeah, be more burnt than a platter full of s'mores. Just like, but again, it's just nice to see some positivity out of a rookie that we didn't go in with high expectations of. We thought project, give it a couple of years, going to sit towards the back there. Let's see what he develops into. Maybe become a good backup, maybe a nickel dime guy. And he's looking better than people expected already. That's good. That's good news. Let's see where he ends up. I think we should talk about some line, though. O-line. The Hogs. The Hog Mollies, Dave Gettleman would say.
O-line.
So the big moves right now are really going to be on the on the offensive line at the guard positions and the center. We've seen Ben Bredesen start at center more. I think the big thing is that they just want to give JMS a chance to go ahead and not be thrown to the wolves. I've seen videos of him practicing with Daniel Jones doing snaps after practice. I like to see that Jones is staying late to do that with him. Again, obviously it benefits him. It's not like he's only doing it to help JMS, but it helps them both. But you've seen Bredesen now also take reps at right guard. We've talked about this before of, if next year, if Mark Lewinsky doesn't improve from how he played last year, that you very well may see Mark Lewinsky lose his job and get cut next offseason and see a guy like Josh Azudu move to right guard. I haven't heard anything at all about Mark Lewinsky really, except him talking about the unit gelling as a whole and being a better cohesive unit and stuff like that. But I gotta wonder, is this a move they're already plotting? Ben Bredesen instead going to right guard, Josh Azudu at left.
I think what this coaching staff is doing is just setting themselves up to have backup at every position, no matter what happens. And just they're playing the Rubik's Cube of where they can move what where.
I was never good at that. I was never, I was the kid who wanted to like rip the stickers off and move them.
I was the kid that broke it apart, put it back together.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
So this way, you could be like, "Oh my god, the stickers look like they're right there, brand new."
But yeah, I mean, I definitely see that part of it there. But I just have to wonder, because if Josh Azudu wins and Ben Bredesen is the better between him and Glowinski, Dable's already proven he don't give a damn what you're getting paid. He's going to play whoever he thinks is the best man for the job. We had literally the highest cap hit of a wide receiver last year who barely saw the field in Kenny Golladay because he sucked.
Sure.
They don't care. They don't care. He doesn't care about your bank account. He cares about how do you help the team win. That's all he cares about, point blank.
That helps his.
Now, we also saw, talking about movement, and this is where I actually do agree with what you said a moment ago there. Tyree Phillips got some time at left guard. He has not played guard in the NFL since 2020, and that was right guard. That wasn't even left guard. So I thought that was interesting that they put him in there to play at times, and I think that is what you talked about. I think that's given the guy a chance to play other places because he's played tackle much more. He really hasn't played guard much, but he has the ability to do that in a pinch. So it's, they're plotting for injuries, which is kind of sad, but kind of necessary.
I mean, they definitely got hit with that injury bug last year.
We talked about it. This is when you're a Giant fan, you are used to injuries. You have to plot for injuries. That's just what it is. Let's see here. Next up, we got to talk about Daniel Jones, because every single thing you hear about Daniel Jones, it's the complete opposite of last year. Last year, he was trash. He looked horrible. The offense was crap. Tyrod Taylor looked better than he did. This year, it's all positive. Guys got more zip in the ball. Guys hitting the spots he's got to hit. He's not getting interceptions. He's doing well under pressure. All the things you want to hear.
What was it, Thursday or was it Friday? It came out in the report that Waller had to step out and take a break because DJ was just zipping him out way too hot.
Yeah. Well, Waller and DJ made it where, like, DJ didn't want to throw anybody else. Basically, he said, "This guy's always open." Boop, boop, boop. There was no
throwing bombs, throwing accurate too. Like, unless he's thrown one interception in this practice.
Pretty much every practice I've seen at the interceptions that I've seen videos of all been Tyrod Taylor. He's thrown a good amount of picks.
No, DJ's got one. It was against Hawkins, nonetheless.
Oh.
And I think he was trying to lace it in. Who was it? It definitely wasn't Waller. I think he was trying to lace it in with Johnson.
I don't know.
I forget. I have to go back on my tweets or my X.
We'll go through.
I have to look at my X's. I have to go through my X's.
Your X's. That sounds bad. I have to go through my X's real quick.
Yeah.
Walk down memory lane. So, we also got to talk about the position battles that everybody's worried about and concerned with, and trying to see what's going on there. The big one, obviously, linebacker 2. Who's gonna pair up with Bobby Okereke? And we said before, Darian Beavers is the guy we think. I know, hashtag save our Beavers. You're going to say it. But it looks like Darian Beavers is definitely the one in the lead there for that position. He's definitely gotten the most snaps alongside Okereke. Again, Okereke. I can't tell you how many podcasts and stuff I still listen to that still pronounce his name incorrectly. Okereke. But
Okereke.
It sounds like it. It's very close. It's very close. Honestly, Carrot Cake is a better version of his name than I've heard some people say. That's for sure. But yeah, he's definitely in the lead based on the snaps there. He's definitely somebody that I think is going to be probably a starter, probably a decent piece in the defense overall. And hopefully just stays healthy. And the nice thing is, if he looks halfway decent this year, you can go next year and go, hold on a second. He was coming off an ACL. It might be even better next year.
Yeah.
So
hopefully.
Let's see. We got a ton of
Here's a heart for the bees.
We got a ton of comments from Dakota. Dakota is like drunk messaging us or something here. He's like, no, let's take a look at what he's got here. He says, LOL, Tony getting traded after getting your skyline on his back and now broken again. Yeah, he's actually been talking big trash still on social media. He actually got an argument today with Bobby Skinner of Talking Giants, and that's just, yeah, especially since you can't even message him back. That's kind of stupid.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
Dakota says CB is the only thing harder to draft than QB, followed by O-line and defensive tackle. I'll say defensive tackle is one position the Giants have down in drafting. They really do. If you think about all the guys they've drafted at the defensive tackle position for years now, they've always done well with that. Always done well. It's almost to the point where like we probably shouldn't have questioned when they got Dexter Lawrence, because a lot of us did and said it was early, and I still think it was. Based on what his position was in that draft, not necessarily what he became, because he became more than people thought he was at that point. But yeah, I mean, they've just been excellent at that. He says also ACC is dying. Yes, it is. That it is. He says we'll be Big 10, 12, and SEC, and rest will fall. I mean, I wouldn't say the rest will fall, but the rest will fall out of favor with a lot of contract stuff as far as TVs, and that'll obviously lead to less big players for them to get as well. He says, why was that first comment guy being so mean? Is that on Facebook? No, that was all on YouTube, man. That's all on YouTube where you're at. He says, I think your team might not overachieve this year again. And in the next few years, I believe Cowgirls are going to head south quick, especially after Jerry Jones' comments on one of his very best players. I noticed he didn't say anything negative about the Eagles. Just saying, Dakota. You got 2 new coordinators. You got most of your defenses all, again, high pedigree players, but guys who haven't proven in the NFL yet. So, just saying, before you start worrying about other teams in the division, take a look at your own house, see what's going on. It says, that's protects his QB. CeeDee Lamb is overrated. No TD. O-line old. Oh, they're still on the Cowboys. D-line not that scary. Pretty good secondary. Honestly, I don't think I think the Cowboys will go down a little bit this year.
Yeah,
I really do. I think Dak is gonna feel the pressure like you would not believe, because he's got that big contract year coming up. He's $52 million against the cap, I think, something like that next season. He doesn't handle pressure very well. We've seen that.
Just look at the playoffs.
He says Jerry Jones is dumb, and he would have all the advantage over his team and others if he and his son just shut up. Reminds me of Trump. We're not going to go to politics now.
Yeah, we're going to say politics.
Yeah, just won't. Yeah, you guys know what that one means. No matter what good moves are made. Jerry Jones. Honestly,
you're not wrong.
I think Stephen Jones.
But we're staying out of politics.
Yeah, we're definitely staying out of the politics part. But I think Stephen Jones is actually running a lot more of that team than Jerry wants to admit. I really have thought that for years. I think Jerry's kind of taken a step back to a certain degree and is more the figurehead than anything else. He says Galladay.
He's been the rising fall of that team.
Dakota also says G-men need to trade for another guard or tackle. Both would really help. They're not going to do that. So the tackle position they're set at, because they got 2 guys they drafted in the last couple of years in the first round. The guard position, they're paying Glowinski too much money to get his replacement, and Bredesen and Azuda will fight it out for that left guard. And worst comes to worst, if Glowinski has issues at right guard, whoever loses that battle, move to right guard. They're not going to do that. And obviously, center, they just drafted a second round center, so that's not going to change anything there.
Draft.
I mean, I think he was the best in the draft, but I wouldn't say it was a strong position in the draft either. Let's see. DJ isn't bad, but I just don't think he's talented enough to elevate his team much higher than the last year's performance, unless they hold on later on the season and add up some of those should win games. I mean, it's all a matter of him having weapons. He did that with, no weapons pretty much at all. I mean, Hodgins, we had
Who
the
was a
episode
practice squad?
Yeah, we had the episode on Thursday, and I we talked about, who do we expect to potentially go downward, and Isaiah Hodgins was the guy I picked because he came out of nowhere and elevated to a high position on the team out of necessity. That necessity might not be this year, and he might go down a little bit there. I hope not, but it's something you have to have in the back of your mind as a possibility.
I mean, you can't be mad when he should be a wide 6, wide 7 on the other team, and he was our wide 2, and now we're getting a lot of talent back.
Some games he was the wide 1. I mean,
yeah, that's what I'm
was
saying.
the main
Like,
target for some of the games. That's crazy.
He really, like, at the end of the day, like, if he digresses, we're moving in the right direction.
Oh yeah, moving on up
to East Rutherford,
to a deluxe MetLife Stadium in the sky. Alrighty, guys. So a couple final notes here. So we got to talk about Evan Neal. We haven't talked about Evan Neal yet, and Evan Neal, by all accounts, has looked much better. Again, I'm not going to say Pro Bowl status. I'm not going to get all crazy happy about how he's looked practice with basically no pads for most of it. So, but yeah, I think that it's going to be a year that is going to be potentially the make or break for him. And we talked about before the big jump that Andrew Thomas made his second year to become a not the guy he is now, but a serviceable tackle in the league, at least his second year. If Evan Neal just does that, I'll be happy. And I hate to say it that way. I'm not saying that that's like my ceiling for him. Don't get me wrong. But if he's just serviceable after what he did last year, that's improvement. I'll be happy.
That is one of the toughest positions in the NFL that is also underrated. So it is hard to be successful.
You know what it is? The man is working his tail off. He's working his tail off, and that's what I can't help but root for a guy that you see nonstop working on his craft, trying to improve, trying to get better.
You saw last year he brought in, retired guys came in like, hey, what can I do better? And he worked during the season, even though he didn't look that great, but he also put that into this off season before they did their, before they came to the practice now, before they did, the OTAs. Like, he's really been hammering that craft away. So, like, if he is just an average at his position this year, like, way better than what he was last year. And then you want to see the same advancement the following year and see him be above average. And that's what we drafted him for. We drafted him.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is also people got to remember he was injured for a good part of the year. Beyond the games he was out, he was also switching from the left side to the right side of the line. So, again, not making excuses. I'm just saying here's potential reasons to look for optimism for him this year. That's a valid way of putting it, I think, here.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people also don't realize going from the left to right, like, it's a different stance.
Yes.
And he also played from stance most of his career, so.
And now that you said left to right, I have the band Seven Dust in my head now. It's in my head now. And your dad's on as well. He says hi.
Hi, Dad.
So one last position battle we got to talk about is that second safety spot. And Jason Pinnock is still definitely in the lead. Again, if you're looking at snap counts and, how he's performed during those counts. But I would still say it's something that we can call, a rotational move, because you're still seeing Nick McLeod in there. You're still seeing, Bobby McCain is there as well. And it's all them pairing him with, Xavier McKinney. I think it's safe to say that we may not have a solid, legit, like, here's your second guy. It's move around. We've talked about it before. They like the Swiss Army knife guys. They like guys that can move around. And sometimes you go, okay, run heavy team. Let's get Pinnock in there because he's more of a big hitter. Oh, it's a pass heavy team and they have a good slot receiver we want to cover. Okay, put Bob McCain in there because he's been a corner. He can cover better, or put Nick McLeod in for that reason. That's what's going to happen, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be, like you said, 100%. It's going to be utility and it's going to be a switch.
Yep.
To that secondary. the second safety.
Yeah, I
Just
think
a
I think
second.
you'll see that kind of stuff moving around, and I think that's fine. Listen, if you can
Yeah.
keep an offense on their heels and not know what they have to face, play in, play out, that's not the worst thing in the world. And when you got guys that are on similar level skill wise, but bring different skills to the table, where one's better at covers, one better at run defense, or one's better at big hits, one's better at zone cover. I mean, whatever the case may be, then utilize what you need for that specific play.
I mean, just like we
Guys
were
be
talking about
fresh.
earlier, and just like we were talking about earlier, like you're trying to diversify like your team and making these players play different positions. So you might turn around and put McCain in, just knowing that that might be a pass play, and you put him in, and they might have to call an audible to a run, but you set your defense up for a run block.
Yes.
With him in there. So like I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to be that sneaky.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. You really don't. And that's, sometimes it's just a matter of maneuvering around, like we said. And I think that's what they'll do. Keep the offense on their toes, not know what's going on. But Pinnock will be the guy that's probably, for the most part, the second guy back there.
Yeah.
We've heard too much about how much the coaching staff likes him. Jet fans are still upset they lost him. They still talk about him. That's the crazy part. So,
And Penix, he's looked great from everything I've read, everything I've heard. He's looked pretty darn good in that position.
The one thing that's scary is you don't hear Dane Belton talked about like that. The guy we drafted. You kind of want the guy we drafted, the guy who's in the rookie deal, to be the guy we talk like that about. But he just doesn't seem to be on par with the rest of them. I'll put it that way.
I mean, who knows? Maybe they're talking about Pinnock and they're going to put definitely start. But I'm a only tell.
Here's the interesting thing. Let's say, for example, if that is where he's at in the depth chart below those guys. So you have Xavier McKinney, you have, Jason Pinnock, you have Bobby McCain. Are you keeping Dean Belton as you have Nick McLeod as well playing? Do you keep him as your fourth or fifth safety? Are you trying to put him on the practice squad? Dane Belton is a guy that he needs to get his poop together, to put it nicely, and start hustling and showing up big time, because he might be a guy that if he doesn't make a big jump this year, or even a jump in general, might not be a Giant next year. He might not be a Giant this year, potentially.
Yeah.
That's a guy that really, and I hate to put somebody in that kind of position in year two, but that was a spot that they wanted to go ahead and upgrade, and they've done what they had to do to upgrade it. So, but yeah. So, alrighty, guys. So we'll be back Wednesday night here with our next episode. Rob and I still have to talk about what we're going to do. We'll talk about that after the show. We'll whisper.
Do stuff.
Nobody hears us. We'll be back, of course, Wednesday. We'll be back again Thursday as well. Thursday will probably be another update on what's going on training camp wise, and update on the, how things are going overall. Again, guys, we don't want to do it every single episode right now, because let's be honest, the show's be very boring. It's practices. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about practice here. We're talking about practice. So we're going to update you guys, once or twice a week as far as what's going on with these practices here. But we don't want to make it and he passed to the left. And the player caught it. And there was a celebration.
And Waller looked so good.
Oh, God. I've been telling you, there's only so much. And the guys on Giants Rush were having their show today before we came on. And they were like, it's one of those things that the more and more training camp gets in, the more and more you get into it. And I kind of thought about it. I'm like, you know what? They're kind of right. It's kind of like the preseason. The preseason gets going. You get all excited. And then you realize pretty quickly, this is why we don't watch preseason that much, because you want to watch it for the players, but the game itself gets a little boring, let's be honest. Training camp's kind of reversed. You kind of don't get as pumped up, and then as things are going, like, okay, season's coming up. So, you get a little more pumped up at that point, because things are starting to get rolling. You're starting to see an actual football, presence there. So, so again, we'll be doing updates for you guys. I just don't want to do it every single episode to the point where we're just talking about things, trying to maneuver ways to make episodes out of it. I'd rather give you guys actual content at that point. So again, we'll be back on Wednesday and Thursday, of course, as always, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, the X, not to be confused with D-Generation X. And of course, Rob's favorite, my LinkedIn profile. He loves it. If Rob wasn't a co-host, he'd be watching those live on LinkedIn. He probably has it up right now on his phone. Of course, we're on every single audio podcast platform. Of course, no demand there. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're on. Actually, the podcast actually is on YouTube as well as a podcast. Technically, it's a video podcast in there, but there is a place for that as well. On Amazon, iHeartRadio, all the big ones there as well. Keep in mind, if you guys have been listening on Stitcher is going to end at the end of the month here of August. I don't know exactly what date for that, but if you're listening on Stitcher, you've been setting up to download, pick your new platform and subscribe. That way you don't miss an episode here. And the best way, though, in general, not to miss a new episode is doing that. Subscribe. Hit that subscribe, whether it's on audio, whether it's on a like button on Facebook, whether it's the subscribe and hitting that bell on YouTube. We definitely appreciate that. And, of course, reminder as well that we do, of course, have our sponsorships available as well. You can do a one-time sponsorship. You can do a monthly sponsorship with a membership there. It just starts at just $5 a month there. You get extra access to Rob and me. If you missed, if you caught our Q&A episode that we did on Thursday, that was our very first Q&A that is typically going to go just to subscribers. So you got a chance to see the first one there without a subscription. Going forward, that'll be subscription only. All righty, guys. So, again, we shall see you guys on Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And as always, Giant fans, go G-Man! G-Man!
Thanks for listening to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. We appreciate your support. If you made it this long, you must have enjoyed it. So I am sure you have followed us on all the social media platforms. Of course, you have subscribed to the show on your favorite app as well and given us a top rating. Right? Right? Right?